Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of the Corner Blue. Welcome to episode 11, where we have a great chat with none other than Andrés Flores, current Portland Timbers player and national team player. He was gracious enough to sit down with us and talk about his path to playing professionally, what his career has been like as a pro and playing for the national team, and how he's had to handle difficult moments, albeit, but also great moments along the way. It was definitely an interesting chat with him to also talk with him about his career at present. He's currently on the verge of playing the MLS playoffs for the 2020 season with the Timbers. He just made his comeback after being out most of the season due to injury and personal issues. So it's definitely great to see him score a goal against the Sounders on his return. But yeah, great person to chat with. He's a class act, ladies and gents. I think he epitomizes the greatness of Salvadoran footy. I mean, he's been through a lot of transitions with the national teams. He's had to deal with a lot of issues as a professional player on the pitch, but also dealing with the social conditions that El Salvador provides to its young people, its players, and he's made it beyond all that. So it was definitely an honor to be able to speak with a player such as El Russo. How are you feeling about the chat, Hugo?
Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the best chats we had so far. Andres is someone, an example for any any soccer player who wants to have a professional career, and to know that that soccer goes beyond your skills on the pitch.
Yeah, it
There
goes
are
beyond
many
those
other
90 minutes.
factors beyond the 90 minutes, and I think Andres is definitely an example to follow for those young players who wish to have a successful career.
Yeah, you look at his trajectory or the clubs that he's played in. He started out playing youth ball, obviously in El Salvador, gets scouted to go play for the River Youth system in Argentina, moves back to El Salvador, plays for Metapan, does really well while they have their streak of many championships in El Salvador. He also played in Denmark for a while, made the transition to the US, ultimately didn't necessarily make that jump to the MLS, but worked his way to the top, and through his connections, work ethic, and drive, basically, he started playing with the Cosmos, coincided with Marco Senna, with Raul, and obviously made an impression on his coach at the Cosmos. When his coach gets hired by the Timbers eventually, he already knew who he was going to bring with them across the country, and ultimately both ended up in the Timbers, and the rest is history. So we're going to go over that history and just the importance that he highlighted of being authentic, being yourself. That was the main message I feel that Russo shared throughout his chat. So let's check it out. Well, we're here with Timbers player, current national team player, Andrés Flores. Andrés, thanks for being with us tonight and taking time to share your time, your memories with fans, especially in an important time as it is right now with the playoffs looming for the MLS. So thanks for taking the time and joining us. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, Andres. Thank you, Hugo, for inviting me, for having me here in your podcast. I think it's always great to have these kind of spaces to be able to talk with our people, with the fans that are always following us. So let's talk about the subject that we all like.
Definitely. Yeah. And I noticed you had a podcast early in the year, right? I listened to it a couple of times, and it was very interesting. And you guys were able to talk with people all over the world. So congrats with that. How's that going? Are you guys going to resume any more episodes coming up, or maybe in the off season, or what's the plan with Sports and Ideas?
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it was a project that started while we were in the quarantine with Romulo Guzman, a friend of mine that is in El Salvador. So we were just talking about ideas and things that we like to do, and since we had some contacts with people that could, like, in our opinion, could bring us very important information about soccer or different sports or different subjects. We ended up starting our own podcast, and then because of different things like personal things and some work related things, we stopped. Well, we probably gonna start doing it again next year, hopefully.
Good. Well, I've subscribed, so I'll definitely get the notifications when they come out. So keep at it. Yeah, it's definitely cool to hear everyone's take on something that's been so popular, I guess, which is the podcast, especially with the pandemic and the whole situation that you start seeing a lot more popping up. But it is cool to see everyone's take on it. Like you have yours. I know Pablo Puñet started a podcast of its own, so it's cool seeing more and more content about La Selecta or soccer related as to El Salvador coming up, because that's something that it tends to always be maybe like the same voices or outlets. So it's nice to mix it up a little bit and get, different insights on stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's interesting to see the things from a different point of view too. Like we are always the guys that are always interviewed or asked about soccer or our teams, and I think it's cool to be on the other side of the interview, to be the ones asking, be the ones um, interested in other people, because there's a lot of people that can teach us or tell us about their experiences that can help us a lot in our daily lives.
Definitely, definitely. And I think in part that's kind of why I thought it would be really cool to talk to you, because I think you as a player embody a lot of positive qualities. You've been resilient in terms of the ups and downs in your career. You've been resilient with a lot of situations that have come up that are infamous in the soccer world in El Salvador. But despite all that, you've been able to establish yourself abroad, outside. And that's something that we don't see, or we haven't seen as often within the last couple of generations of players, especially in the MLS. So that's why I thought it'd be really cool to talk with you and see what has that path been for you? What are the challenges that you've had to deal with, the ups and downs? And more than anything, what have you been able to enjoy? And so that's something that we'll be able to talk to as we go along. But to start off, I feel like right now you're at this really important point in your Timbers career. You just came back from a few match days on the bench. It's been an irregular year for everybody. You've had to deal with the ups and downs, and you come back first appearance and you get that goal. What was that like? What were the emotions going through your mind?
Well, before starting talking about me, I would like to congratulate Hugo for because of his now finally role with the Federación, right? With the Salvadorian national team. I think he deserves it. He's been working a lot uh, to get the opportunity that now he has, and I know he's gonna. I wanted to congratulate before start talking about me.
Definitely.
Um,
Thank you.
and
Well
after
deserved.
that, yeah, well deserved. uh, as you mentioned, it's been a crazy year for everyone, but especially for me, it's been crazy because I have to uh, face different situations in my personal life regarding my family, regarding injuries, and in different facets of my life. So it's been a ride, a roller coaster, and I think uh, being resilient has been key for me to uh, now being able to tell you that I played the last 4 games, being able to tell you that I scored the goal in my first game of the season against our rival, that is Seattle, in their home field. It was just great for me. I mean, like my expectations were to be able to come back and do a good job and help the team. But I did come back, and in 10 minutes I was going to score a goal and I was going to play a good game, and in a such an important game for us. So I'm very proud of all the work that I put during the entire year, and I'm just thankful. I'm just thankful to have the opportunity to be here to be able to play this past 4 games, and now have chances to play the playoffs. It's just uh, I mean, it's just great for me, and I'm very thankful for that.
Definitely. And so with the playoffs looming, could you explain to us who are you guys facing? When is that coming up? And what are you guys doing as a team to prepare for it?
Well, we're gonna face Dallas here in Portland on the 22nd, November 22nd. It's gonna be a very difficult match because we know Dallas is a very good team. They have talented players. They always make games very difficult, very hard to play against. So we know that we have to prepare. We have 2 weeks to get ready for that game, to prepare the game plan, and most of all to be focused on what we want. Like sometimes you get relaxed when you make the playoffs, and it doesn't have to be the case for us. Like we need to keep focused. We need to keep the intensity to be able to get to that game and win it, because that's what we want.
Yeah, Andres, definitely. You mentioned resilience, and you definitely have shown that. I think that you're someone to follow, an example for the Salvadorian youth. Um, I think I think you were like 15 or 14 when you went to Argentina. I don't remember exactly what age you were, but I started following your career since then, basically, when you made that move, and I clearly remember when I was trying to recruit Stephen Purdy to play for La Selecta, and they were doing a preseason in Oxnard, and
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like an hour drive for me, so I went up there and I to meet with Steve and have lunch with him and talk about the possibilities of playing for La Selecta. And I remember suddenly you show up with Ventura County Fusion in that friendly game that they were having, and I heard that you were, I guess the plan was for you to try out with the Timbers. At
Mm-hmm.
least at least that's what I heard. And obviously that didn't happen then because you play for Ventura for the PDL team, and nothing happened then, and here you are now playing for the Timbers, and obviously you've had a very long path to getting to where you are now. So how's that experience for you when you think back that you traveled to the US to try out with the Timbers, you didn't get that opportunity, and now you're a Timbers player. How is that for you?
Well, I think that's a great question, and great context. Now, I am 30 years old now, and I'm playing for the Timbers. This is my third year, and now that I look back and I remember those experiences, I totally understand that God's times are perfect, and He has a perfect plan for us, for everyone. And at that time, I trained with the Timbers for a week, and I remember that everything went well, but at the end, the head coach at that time, didn't want me to stay, because he said he was going to bring another player in the same position, so he wanted a more experienced player in that position. So I understood, and I went back to Metapan, because I was playing with Metapan at that time. And so at the time I was frustrated. I didn't totally understand why I didn't get the chance, because I talked with the GM at that time in the Timbers, that is still the same GM now, and he told me he liked me, but it was the coach's decision. So I couldn't understand. I was frustrated. But now that I'm here, I can see that maybe that wasn't the right time for me to stay with the Timbers, because I think that at that time I was not gonna get opportunities to play. So for me, being here, I was 21, turning 22 at that time, coming here to a place, um, which I didn't know. I just knew pretty a little bit, and coming here and facing that challenge and not having the opportunity to play, I was gonna lose my time. And that time of a soccer professional career is very important, because that's the time where you develop yourself, where you have to play, where you have to gain playing time to gain more experience, to be under that pressure, on the field. So I think it was the best for me to go back, now that I see back at that time. And I think it all came out. I mean, I took the risk to go to the Cosmos, play there sometime, um, gain, like, earn a spot in the team, and then try to achieve something bigger than, and that was coming here after. So for me, everything, the path has been good, and now I'm just enjoying it.
Definitely. And if we could basically go back a little further in time, could you explain to us how was it that you started playing? Who were your biggest influence to fall in love with the sport?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I play soccer since I have memory. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I always had a ball, like, with me playing soccer around the house, or with my neighbors, or at school. So I always like, I've been a soccer player like all my life. Um, but I started a little bit more serious when I joined the Academia La Chelona in El Salvador
Nice,
when I
nice.
was 10 years old, 9 or 10 years old, with Norberto Hueso, El Pájaro, because he was the coach of that team. And in that team, uh, Jaime Alas was playing in that team. Jaime Alas, Diego Cuellar, that was a goalkeeper for the youth national team, and then for Marte. Diego Chavarria, that is playing for Firpo now. Chino Orellana, that I think is not playing anymore, but he was playing there too. So we had good players there, and so that was my step to make it more serious.
I was there for a little bit, for a couple months.
There you are. There you go. So
Yeah.
I used to wear the red one, you know.
Nice, nice, nice.
So that was my step to make it more serious. And then when I think the moment when I realized that I had probably more chances to to make the step to the pros was when I had the opportunity to go to Argentina with River Plate. That's when I opened my eyes and started to think, like, maybe soccer could be my life. And then I went there, had that experience. It was amazing, and then everything happened. But that was the starting point where I probably thought it was going to be more serious.
How much time did you spend in Buenos Aires at River?
In Rivers, when I got there, I started playing, and then at the middle of the year in 2015, in 2005, I'm sorry, in 2005, the AFA, the Federation of Argentine Football, they with the rule that players younger than 18, um, that were foreigners, had to live with one of their parents in the city. So at that time, my parents didn't have the opportunity to move to Argentina just to be with me.
Mhm.
So I had to make a decision, and I had to go back to El Salvador because of that. Because the next year I was not going to be able to play because I was still 16. Sorry. Um, so I had to go back to El Salvador and kept playing for La Chelona, then for the U17, the national team. Then then I started playing. No, then it was U20, and then I started playing professionally with Metapan in 2009.
And can we go back to I think it was under 17s, right? Because that's when I first remember seeing you and Jaime with your Saiyajin haircuts from back in the day, like balling and doing super well. What was that experience of finally making that transition, and what was it like playing under El Pájaro? Because I remember the main concept that everyone had was like there was this really good unity. He had coached you guys since you were kids. What was that transition? All of a sudden now you're playing, internationally.
Well, it was very different, because we had a very good team with La Chelona, as I mentioned before, and we knew each other very well. Like we knew how to play together and all those things. So when we moved to the national team, of course, we needed more players because there were some more very good players. I remember William Maldonado joined the team. Nelson Bonilla was with us in that national team too. Jorge Moran, and some others. So we ended up making a very good team, and we all knew Norberto very well, and he knew us very well too. So that team used to play very good. So we made the Premundial. It's the last round of the World Cup qualifiers. We went to Honduras. We played there, and we lost the last game against Haiti. I think 1-0. It was a mess because we had a lot of chances to make it to the World Cup, and we ended up losing that game, and that marked us a lot. That was a very negative experience because we were very excited about going to the World Cup, and we knew that we had chances, and we ended up losing that game. So it was very different. But I think that generation was very, very good. We had very good players.
And when you came back from Rivet, do you felt like you had like a target on you, or was there like a stigma that you had played in Rivet and maybe people were kind of like mad dogging you or thinking that like que eras creído or that type of stuff? Because, sometimes that happens when sometimes maybe someone has some success and you come back. How was that transition and how did you handle that?
So at that time we didn't have social media, so we didn't recognize that, or uh, we were not able to see all those comments. So I don't know. But I've always been like this, like I think I've been like I am very authentic, and I don't know if there was people that used to think about that, but my transition was, I think it was good. I didn't have much problems, but I think I lost a little bit of my motivation because I was in Argentina, and then going back to El Salvador, I was like a little bit frustrated, but at the same time I had that hunger to like going out, like go play abroad again. So I didn't feel comfortable until I made it again. And I think that was something that helped me a lot at the time of taking decisions of going to play to Denmark at the time, or then going to New York.
You mentioned, Andres, that U17 generation was very talented, and I agree with you. I follow that team. I clearly remember because that's basically when I started really following the different national teams and the players abroad, and you and Jaime, and I think there were a few other guys that also went to other teams in Argentina. Why do you think some of those players like Maldonado, which was the number 10, he was the guy who basically moved the team, and El Chino Orellana, the goal scorer of the team, Cuellar, a very solid goalkeeper at that level. Why do you think some of those players didn't quite make it in the first division in El Salvador? What in your experience, obviously you're a player that transcended, that you had a successful career in El Salvador, and then you moved to Denmark and NASL and now MLS. Why do you think that? What stops some of those players who are obviously very talented, but at some point they just don't seem to have enough, or I don't know if they don't have the support from the coaches. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Um, in my opinion, I think obviously we're talking about different personalities, right? Some players are more focused in what they want and have clear goals and objectives, and some others they play because they have the talent and maybe they don't have the same goals or objectives. So starting from that point, um, some of us maybe had the as I said before, we were very hungry, you know, and we were not um, happy with just playing in El Salvador and that was it. For example, I played in El Salvador and I won 5 championships. I with Metapan and went to CONCACAF Champions League and made it it was the best tournament for Metapan in their history and all that. So and at that time I felt that I accomplished everything that I had to accomplish in El Salvador. So I wanted to go abroad, you know, and that was me. But maybe some other players, they're just happy to be there and play there and play for the national team for La Selecta, and that's it. Because sometimes you have to take risks, and that is one thing that I would like to point out from Darwin's end, for example, or from me, that we just made the decision. We took the risk to go to Darwin, for example. He went to USL with Orlando, and I went to the New York Cosmos to NASL. We didn't make the jump to MLS right away, you know. So that's what happens. Like some players in El Salvador, they want to make it straight, and we're not in the position, I think, at this time to make it. Um, so, and we can talk about that like later, but I think that was the difference between some players and some others.
Yeah, you bring up a very interesting point, because when you made the move to the Cosmos, and when Darwin, you brought up Darwin, when Darwin made the move to the USL, I remember a lot of criticism from the media and the fans, because obviously for players, like you spent some time in Argentina, then you spent some time in Europe. The expectations were high, but you the two of you took that leap of faith, and it obviously has paid off for the two of you. And I always thought that was a good path, because the level of soccer in El Salvador is so the distance between MLS and the level of the first division in El Salvador is so big, that in a way it makes sense to make that move to the USL or to the NASL, where in a sense the styles are very similar to MLS, but then you do have more spaces, to play. Maybe the intensity is not the same as MLS, but you get to experience that physicality that MLS has, and it is a good stepping stone for Salvadorian players who they may be, very good, solid players in the local league over there, but making that jump to MLS has shown, with many other players, to be a big jump, and some of them are not ready for that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, well, I've spoken with some of the scouts in the league, um, and they see El Salvadorian league, La Liga Mayor, as a minor league. And to make a jump from a minor league to a league that is growing and their expectations are high is not easy. And we all know that soccer is a result uh, driven sport, like all sports, but it's all about results. And if the national team or any Salvadorian team is not having good results in CONCACAF Champions League or the La Selecta in the Gold Cup, for example, or making it to the hexagonal final, um, they're not gonna start looking at the players from El Salvador. For example, when a team wins the World Cup, all the players from that country start to go and play for the best teams in the world because that's what it is. So that happens here too. If God willing, we can make it to the World Cup or win a Gold Cup or make it to the final or semifinal or whatever we do, but we do it well, then the teams are gonna start saying, okay, Salvadorian players, we can start bringing them to here.
Yeah, that's something we talked about with Richard for the time that he was with us a couple episodes. That yeah, it if the national team is able to get those results, like you were saying, that's when you start seeing teams want to be able to take a risk or give players a shot. And one thing I forgot to mention then was, yeah, you did see that jump with the first cycle or De Los Cobos' first stint with the national team. That once they did make it to the hexagonal, once they did get those results against the bigger teams in the area, that several were able to make that jump. Granted, they didn't stay too long in the league, but yeah, you saw at least 3, 4 players that all of a sudden they got signed.
But yeah, but I think that's the thing. So one thing is, okay, you have good results with the national team, and then there's a group of players that go to good leagues. That's one thing. But then the next thing is that those players need to play more time, that like maintain themselves there,
Yeah,
like
establish themselves. Yeah.
establish themselves there,
Hmm.
and that's even more difficult. And that's one of the things that I think we have to point out, and we have to talk with the players, um, because that's not easy. Because, and I always say this, when you reach a certain level of soccer, like MLS, for example, the level of the players is very even, you know? And so there's just details that make the difference between one player or other. The one player understands better the game plan or understands better the way the coach want to play. Or maybe I don't know, but there are some details that make the difference between one player and the other. And we have to be ready for that. And that's what makes one player stay more time than others, you know? So I think that's a very important thing that we have to communicate to our players to be able to not just achieve uh, going and play abroad. No, not just that. Maintain and establish themselves in their teams.
In your case, because just taking that whole step of moving abroad is not easy. Like I think about my family and how they moved to the United States, in different circumstances, obviously, but just the concept of moving outside of your comfort zone and adapting to a new culture, new language, that's not easy. And in your case, what has helped you make those transitions or stay afloat, keep a steady mind when you've had to, adjust and go to new places?
Well, I think in my case, I like challenges. I like challenges, and I think going out of the comfort zone is very important for us to be able to grow as a person and grow in as a professional. And in my case, I like challenges, and I appreciate this from my parents because they supported me when I was a kid, and they took me to English classes, and that helped me a lot now that I'm here in the US. So that wasn't a problem for me at the time I made the move. Um, uh, but it's an important fact that we have to be prepared and be ready to the challenges that come uh, uh, along the decision of going to the other country. Because it's not easy. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna go play, score some goals, and that's it. No, because you have a life after what happens on the field, and those are challenges that you have to be ready to face, or at least be open to face.
And what have been some of those for you, like weather, culture, missing family? What are some of those things that have come up to you that you've had to deal with?
Well, missing family for sure, because I'm a very family guy. I love to spend some time with my family, and at the beginning, I spent a lot of time without them. So that was, I think, that was the biggest one, just missing my family. Um, then uh, maybe just adapt to the new culture. It's something that it's always important. I think we always have to be authentic in ourselves, and and just be ourselves with everyone else. But we also have to adapt, and we also have to be open to learn from other cultures, and that was maybe one of those challenges for me too.
Where did you feel like the most culture shock, when you played in Denmark or when you went
In
to
Denmark, yeah.
Argentina? Okay, okay.
Denmark for sure, because I went there and they speak English because that's their second language, but the Danish is very difficult, so I couldn't understand anything. And for me, be seated with all my teammates around and they were talking, and I couldn't understand anything. It was very difficult. So that was very difficult, and also they're 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 nice people, but they're colder than Latin American people. So you're
It's a
used
lack
to
of sun.
people, yeah, talking to you and being nice. They're not like warm with you. They're just like, hey, and that's it. So that was something that surprised me, and maybe I didn't expect it. But whenever you're like, when you meet them and you know how they are, it's easier.
And were you ever like on the brink of like, oh man, I want to go back home? And where did you get that strength, or who was there that to advise you not to, or like, ground you, be like, no, 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 like we'll see you on the off season? Did you ever reach that point where you're like, nah, I got my bags packed, I'm out?
I was lucky to found a man. He was a Honduran old man that had, like, all his life he's been living in Denmark, in that town. It's called Viborg. So when he found out that I was going there, he went to the club and he asked the team manager to please get in. So we ended up being friends, and he used to invite me to his house, and we used to hang out whenever we could. So I was very lucky at that time, because that was the little time when I felt at home, because I was able to speak in Spanish. I was able to share some experiences from El Salvador. He used to talk about Honduras, and that was very special for me.
That's cool to know, man. Yeah, because I've had some experiences when I've gone abroad, some or left my own comfort zone, and yeah, it definitely helps when you have people around you to support you, to ground you. Because sometimes, yeah, you end up with situations, whether it's cultural or I went to school for my example, and I didn't like the program, but yeah, it just helps when you have people around you so that you can make better decisions, help you calm down a little bit. Because yeah, when you feel that distance sometimes, or at least I remember feeling like, oh wow, I'm like a whole bunch of time zones away from home. This is crazy. So yeah, that's cool to hear your story, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, but it is important, because I think in general people just see what you do. They just see, they just know you because of what you do, because of your profession, but they don't know the path that you have behind, or everything that you have to live. with outside of that, and that's very cool to know.
So, Andres, you brought up the fact that your parents took you to the English classes, and congratulations, because you have very good English. And I don't know if you learned all of your English in El Salvador, or when you moved to the Cosmos, you started taking more English classes. But congratulations, that's definitely a big plus.
You can shout out your school too, because I think my cousins went to school with you. They're a lot younger, but I remember they said that they used to go to school with you at El Euro, the school right
Oh,
next to
Lebro?
the
Yeah, yeah,
Federación.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
so you
went
could
there,
give them a shout out if you
for high
want.
school. Yeah, of course. I graduated from there.
Nice.
So English, it's you can go to Europe, you can go anywhere in the world, and people will speak English. Most countries in the world will speak English. And you mentioned about the culture shock, and when you moved to Denmark, and even though everyone in Denmark speaks English, you had those moments where the Danish were speaking their language and you just couldn't understand anything. I can only imagine what that would be like for someone who doesn't even speak English, someone who just moved from El Salvador to the Danish league, for example, like in your case, and they don't speak English. That's probably like an even bigger culture shock, and a bigger challenge to be able to stay and thrive in that country. Because as you said, when we look at soccer players, we look at the who we see on TV, and we forget that behind that soccer player there's a person who has a family, who has a life to live after the training days and after the games. And if you can't really find a way to fit into that culture outside of the sport, it makes it very challenging to have a successful career outside of your country. So where I'm going with this is that luckily in your case you had some English, you had learned some English. And do you think that for a lot of Salvadorian players, there is that lack of education, or someone, not necessarily a formal education, but someone who can guide players and prepare them, even the clubs, a club level, to teach those players some basic English, so that if at any point an opportunity comes to play abroad, it will help to make that transition smoother and give them a higher possibility of having a successful career?
Yes. I think, or I'm one. I consider myself a person that believes that a player needs to add whatever he can to his bag. The more things he add to his bag, um, talking like regarding soccer skills, or personal skills, or in this case English or different languages, it's going to benefit him in a great manner. So I think um, English should be a key factor in the development of a player. I think I would put it in that way, because that's gonna open. And I'm not gonna just talk about the player having more opportunity to communicate when he goes abroad. That's an important fact. But for a player to learn English and speak it is gonna give him more ganas, more
Courage,
willingness. Yeah,
willingness.
willingness to learn more things. You know,
Yeah, it
he's gonna
opens
open
a
his
door.
mind.
Yeah,
He's,
it opens
he's
a
gonna,
door to
yeah,
so much.
it's gonna open his mind,
Hmm.
because then you start to think in English, and then you start to learn more things, and then you end up being a better player, because you understand more your coach, because you start to see things in different language, and it opens up your mind. So I think learning a different language, in this case English, that I think it's the one that we all speak, around the world, it should be a key factor in the development of a player.
All right. And I think we only have about 12 more minutes, so we don't want to take too much more of your time. But to start breaking things down, or before we do the outro, could you talk to us about your time, the time that you spent with the senior squad? What was it like getting your first minutes, getting your first cap, and what has that whole process been? Because as fans, we know all the ups and downs that are involved with just being fans of La Selecta. You know, hasta cierto punto somos masoquistas. We're all a little masochistic in some respect because we deal with more downs than ups, but we enjoy those ups so much. The ups are what keep us interested. The ups are what keep us, locked in and hoping for the best. I mean, this is a year where La Selecta hasn't even had an official match, and here we are spending over an hour every week with new people. And you're episode 11. There's just so much to talk about. But what has that experience been for you? What are those high moments for you, and then how did you handle some of those low moments that we as fans, are aware of? Obviously.
When if the fans are masoquistas, we're the double of masoquista. You know, um, uh, it's. I mean, being part of La Selecta is just amazing. I mean, it was a dream come true when I was a kid. I always watched them play, and for me, being able to wear the La Selecta jersey is just great. Having the opportunity to see me, I mean, see videos there playing and celebrating goals, or just being sad or angry after games. I mean, it's just great. Um, but I mean, it's a roller coaster because you go there and you face difficulties because of what we have and all that. So love representing, and I think in just having the chance to do it, it's something that I'm very proud of. And I remember my first game. It was in Trinidad and Tobago with Carlos de los Cobos in his first time with the national team, and I was very happy. I remember I played like 15 minutes, and it was a friendly over there in Trinidad and Tobago, and it was great for me. And after that, I had the chance to play with the national team. I have the chance to play against the best national teams in the world, like Brazil or España or Argentina. It's been just amazing. So I'm just very thankful, and I really appreciate um, the fact that I've had the chance to play with that jersey.
Definitely. Can you describe specifically like what's your mental routine when there's, important matches? What do you do to prepare mentally? What's the routine that you have when you have matches coming up with La Selecta?
Well, I try to I try to hang out with the other players. I try to so we have time to watch videos and talk about the game. And after those little, I just try to um, do different things to be able to think in other things, to hang out with other players, or to read, or watch a movie or something else, because I don't want to be thinking on the game, because that makes me anxious. So I try to do different things, and then when I go to the game, I try to listen to music, and then I start focusing on what I have to do and what the team have to do to be able to win the game.
And do you during your routine in general, do you think about, people that are special to you to try and get pumped up, or what do you reflect on when you walk into a match just to kind of like ground you? Do you have something special like that you do before a game?
I always think in my family. I always think about my mom and my dad, that that is not here anymore. But I always think in my family because they're always the one that are there for me when I win or I lose. They're always there, um, suffering every situation that I live with my soccer career. So I always try to think about them because that's what makes me feel comfortable and makes me feel secure or ready to play.
You've basically epitomized resilience in your own career, but then especially in terms of La Selecta, you epitomize that as well. I feel like you were one of the unofficial leaders of the team, making the transition out of the match fixing scandal, and you've been the unofficial leader throughout the different coaches and the processes since then, with all the bumpy transitions. um where have or how do you see yourself in those situations, or do you feel like you were just thrust into the limelight or into that role? Was that something that you assumed yourself? And how do you handle those types of situations of trying to weather the storm? Because like you said, it is a roller coaster due to a lot of the factors that we know that go on with La Selecta.
Yeah, the it was a very difficult time. It was a very um, negative moment to be in La Selecta when that happened, and we lost a very good generation of players, and we lost the opportunity to make the transition of that generation of players to a new generation of players. So for my generation, it took us like we went from being the youngest players in the national team, just having the chance to play a little bit, from being the ones leading the national team, you know? And that's a transition that you make when you see players going like getting older, and then they retire from La Selecta, and then you get the chance. But we didn't have that time of transition. We were there, and all of a sudden we were leading the team. I had to be the captain at that time, you know. So it was difficult because people thought that we were involved too, and we didn't have anything to see there. Like we didn't do anything, you know. So it was difficult because I remember I saw people like I was walking in a mall, for example, back in El Salvador, and then there was a guy that was yelling at me, "Vendido," or like uh, whatever, and I had nothing to do with that. So it was a little bit unfair for this generation to have to handle that because we it was not our fault. We have nothing. We didn't do anything, you know. So it was a little unfair. But at the same time, I think this generation is a generation of players that are good people, and they didn't they took their responsibility, and they just they no hicieron mala cara. They didn't deny the opportunity to go there and face it, you know, face the difficult times, face the 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 unfair comments from other people. I know, like we would have wanted better results, you know, like everyone. But I think at the end, this generation did a good job on make that transition in very very hot and difficult times, and I think that's important to note too.
Yeah, and that's something that from the outside was something that I definitely noticed, where you guys were really thrust into, you know, getting being the backbone of a team that, abruptly the core of it was gone. And it was really great seeing you guys, especially when you guys were playing with Roca, how that you guys made that transition, during that time. And that's something that Hugo and I have talked about, and we've talked with guests here, how well you guys did with the few resources or the little time that you guys had together to start playing at a high level. seeing that transition and that process was very impressive as a fan. And we all know, of course, that unfortunately it was cut short. But what are some of the favorite things that you remember during that time, or why was it almost seemed that it was like the perfect, match of coach and players during a transition so big as that one was?
Yeah, I think that was a good opportunity for us because we had a coach we trusted, because we trusted him a lot, and we trusted the way he used to work. Of course, it was a little difficult at the beginning because he had different ways to work, and we were used to a different way to work too. But then when the time passed and we started to know him and know the way he worked and everything, it was very good because we really enjoyed the time in the national team. We were not focused on the other situations, like the lack of resources or what we all know. But it was more all about going there, playing, and enjoying the games. And that's why the team looked very good. That's why the players were enjoying playing well. The team looked good. We played some really good games, and that was the result of him being a good leader and us trusting uh, the way he worked.
Definitely the national team that Albert Roca had. I mean, it was a team that was started from zero, from scratch. And obviously, there were some players like you, like Jaime, who were there. And like you said, in your position, there was Julio Martinez, who was kind of like the starter. And then sometimes you would go in. But all of a sudden, it was, you guys, the leaders, and you had to take over. And I think you guys did a really great job under Roca. Um, I wanted to ask you your thoughts about uh, players who are born outside of El Salvador to one or two Salvadorian parents. What are your thoughts about bringing more of those players into the national team? Do you feel like it adds to the national team, it helps, or do you feel that it takes away an opportunity for a national player?
I believe that if the player feel or if the player they identify himself with the country and with La Selecta, it will be a great addition, because when you feel identified with that jersey, then you go there and you're gonna feel the results of the team, you know. So I think whoever it is, like no matter if he was born in the U.S. or in El Salvador or whatever, if he feels the identification of with the national team, with La Selecta, that player is going to be a great addition to the team. Um, and and I think and having the opportunity to go to the La Selecta is something that you earn. So for me, saying, "Oh, if we bring more players that were born in the U.S. and we don't give players that were born in El Salvador the chance," no, because you have to earn that opportunity. So if you're playing well in your team, you're gonna be in La Selecta, you know. And it doesn't matter if you're in the U.S. or if you're in El Salvador. So I think more than that, more than focus on that, we have to focus on the identification that the player feels with the jersey, the connection. That's very important.
And going back to your path at club level, I wanted to ask you. Obviously, you're a very focused player. You know what you want. You know your goals, and some may say, Andres is not like the most. How can I say it? some people want to see Messi-like players all the time. And then Andrés Flores has always been in my opinion, a player who tactically, I think that you're one of the best players in the national team because you understand the game at a different level. And maybe sometimes we want to see more of your one-on-one skills and you taking on players, but sometimes you need to sacrifice some of that in order to fit into the tactics and the game style that the coach wants to play. So, and I think that that's part of your success in a club level in MLS and ASL. And where I'm going with this, I don't know, but I think that your relationship with Giovanni Savarese it's probably very good. So I wanted to ask you, what does Giovanni Savarese means to you in your career?
Well, I can say Gio has been um, key in my development or in my learning about soccer tactics. I think I've grown with him. I've been able to understand the game in a deeper manner with him. Um, so he's been very important for me in that sense. My relationship with him is very good outside the field too, because he's a great guy. He's a great person, and we've been now together since 2014. So it's 6 years now that we've been working together. So we've had the chance to live different experiences together with the Cosmos. Now with the Timbers, we've accomplished important things. We won um, two soccer balls in the NASL with the Cosmos, and then we came here in 2018 and we won the Western Conference, and then we made it to MLS Cup final, and then we lost it against Atlanta. But it was a great first year in the MLS for both of us, and I think um, he's always told me that he trusts me, and I trust him too, and I think I've been able to understand the way he wants to play and the way he sees soccer, and I think that's one thing that have helped me uh, to stay with him this 6 years. That is not easy, it's not easy, and I think that's one of the key factors for me.
And how do you like Portland as a city living there? I know it's cold out there. This year's been an interesting year out there as well with all the political stuff going on in the pandemic. But in general, how do you like living in the city? And does that influence you in terms of, for your next contract or the next step that you take in your career?
Well, I really like it. I think the Portland and I mean the state of Oregon has a lot of nature, and I really like nature. And is where I live right now. It's a very family kind of atmosphere. So my wife like it, and my family that has visited like it too. And that's one of the things that has made me feel comfortable in the city. Um, and I really enjoy it, other than the cold weather. But I think it's just it's been a great time here in Portland. Um, right, what's going to happen with the playoffs, and then we'll see what happens for the future. But of course, it's been a great time. I've had a great experience here, and we'll see what happens next.
And do you like Voodoo Donuts or Blue Star better? Which one do you recommend?
I prefer Voodoo Donuts. I
Nice.
prefer Voodoo Donuts. But I don't know. It's up to the
I
person.
back you up on that one. I got to
Okay,
go last
okay,
year, so
that's
I
good.
back you up on that for sure.
Portland is definitely, in my opinion, not that I haven't been to all the cities in the U.S., but when I was in Portland, I went to watch the Timbers play against Real Salt Lake, and at that time again, it was during my Stephen Purdy recruitment process. And when I got into that stadium, it was like the most amazing atmosphere. I mean, I'm from LA, or I live here in LA. I've been to a lot of games in LA, MLS games, and I mean, Portland was like being in any European stadium. It was amazing. So you're definitely in a very good place for that. But how is it playing without the fans with COVID? I mean, because that's an important part of the Timbers Army.
Yeah, it's very different because, as you mentioned, the energy that the fans and the Timbers Army put during the games, it's amazing, and the atmosphere in the stadium, it's just great. So now that we have to play without fans is a big difference. Like, you go to the stadium and it's just very different, and you can feel the energy is another, and it's like you were not in the Providence Park. Um, uh, but I think it's important to mention the work that the organization has done to build a soccer culture here in the city, because now the fans uh, really care about the team. They really love the organization, because they are always on the lookout for the Timbers and also for the Thorns. There is the women's team here. So it's just great to see people out in the city with a Timbers jersey, and everything that happens on a game day, for example, before the game or after. And I think, and I have to say it, like, if you have the chance to come here in a game day to Portland, you have to do it, because there's nothing that this city or this team is missing from Europe or from South America. I mean, I know it's different, but the atmosphere in the stadium is great.
All right. Well, we don't want to take too much more of your time, Em. So to close just this segment, again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and chatting with us. There's always more to talk about. So hopefully down the line, once some fixtures are set for La Selecta, we can talk and see what the process is with the team then, what the outlook is. But again, thank you so much for taking the time and talking with us on this. I appreciate it.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you
Thank you,
guys.
Andres.
Thank you guys again for inviting me. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the best in this project and in all the projects that you guys have. So hopefully we can meet again and talk about this.
Definitely. If you're ever in the Bay and want to go to Napa, let me know.
Perfect. Awesome.
All
Thank you.
right, sounds good.
Gusto de verlo. Cuídense.
Mucha suerte,
Igualmente,
viejo.
Andres.
Gracias, igualmente.
Bye, pues.
What a great conversation with El Russo. Um, incredible career, incredible person. We could have continued talking for hours and hours. He's just a person that, like he says, he's an authentic person. Many stories to share, and he's definitely he's been someone who has worked really hard to be where he is, and he's an example of someone who makes the move abroad, but also manages to stay and work hard every day to be able to succeed in a difficult league like MLS. So definitely, I really admire his path and his view of life and his work ethic, both on and off the pitch.
Yeah, something that definitely transcended early on, seeing him grow throughout the years, especially starting with the under 17s, is that he has a level head on his shoulders. And I think he was able to transmit how he's able to stay grounded, how he's able to keep moving forward despite, all the adversities that may come up. And that goes for anyone in anyone's life, anyone's career. of how you can try and stay sound, stable, and keep moving forward without losing a grasp on who you are, and also not letting adversity just knock you on your ass. And there's no better way of putting it. So definitely a great conversation. It was awesome to get that insight. So much more to talk about with him that hopefully in the future we're able to, because the guy has a sports management degree and we weren't even able to talk about what his future or hopes for the future are, because that in and of itself leads you to think, is he interested in, he's obviously interested in working in the sports field. We don't know where. That's something that would be interesting to talk with him down the line. But again, thank you for tuning in. We're doing a little couple changes here and there, trying to make the podcast look a little more fancy. So I want to give a shout out to our graphic designer, Armando Peraza, for his hard work. Hope you guys like the graphics that we're going to be using now for each episode, thumbnails, and keep clicking, keep liking, keep listening, keep viewing, keep sharing. We even have friends or listeners that aren't Salvadoran tuning in. So that's also cool, knowing that we're reaching beyond what we thought was going to be our own little niche, that there's this universality, this common ground that is footy, that is soccer, that is bringing us together. And it is cool hearing stories that you don't necessarily hear about in mainstream media, or even the outlets in El Salvador might not be able to get, that angle, in these players' stories. So again, that's what we're going to keep trying to do here, is share those stories with you, talk with players, and keep us grounded as we end this year. So keep tuning in. We'll see you guys next time. I think we're going to be able to do maybe 2 or 3 more episodes, hopefully, before the year ends, but we'll keep you guys posted.
We have a Christmas special.
Yes, maybe not live, but hopefully we'll have some content, because there's no better feeling than when you're stuck on I-5, either going from NorCal to SoCal, having something to listen to during those traffic jams, or cross-country flights, or wherever you are. I mean, a lot of people are going to be stuck at home with the whole quarantine thing going on. So yeah, we're definitely going to try and have some content for you guys, and keep liking, keep giving us feedback. We totally appreciate it. And thank you once again, and we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.